Hey guys, welcome back to AIR Reptile Rescue. This next video is the last one in the Pac-Man series. We're going to talk about proper feeding and handling. Today we're going to talk about how to feed your Pac-Man frog. With a juvenile or a baby, like I mentioned in the last video, feed them every 2 to 3 days. I recommend every 2 days with them. It'll help them grow, and it gives them more nutrients and stuff like that to help them. For an adult, once or twice a week, because of the fact that they're fully grown, they're not going to grow anymore. Only feed your frog enough insects or fish that it can consume overnight. You don't want to overload it with food because they will gorge themselves. And if they feel that once they eat that there's no more food left, then they'll go into brumation, possibly, which is basically just a hibernation for them. So you don't want them to think that there's a shortage on food supply. So you want to kind of keep that food coming, like I said, with juveniles and babies every 2 to 3 days, and then once or twice a week for your adults. The size of the food will depend on the size of your frog. Like if you have a baby, like a baby that's like the size of a quarter, you want to get him small crickets, one small goldfish. If you have one that's about the size of mine, about 2.5 to 3 inches, I just fed him 3 crickets earlier. I put a little bit extra in there because of the fact that he didn't eat since last Thursday, so I kind of wanted to make sure he had enough in there. But also I had extras that I wasn't going to give my spider, so somebody had to have it, so he got them. But always make sure that it's enough that can be consumed overnight. If it's past the overnight point, since they are nocturnal, they usually come out at night and eat. But if it's like the next day and it's towards the afternoon time, you still see the food in there, take it out of there. Don't leave it in there for them. If they don't eat it all, don't be concerned. Sometimes, like the other day, I had a fish in there for mine and he didn't eat it. He actually knocked it out of his bowl and caused it to suffocate. So what I did is I removed the fish out of his enclosure completely, and I put in crickets today, and he ate it. It was just fine. So keep that in mind whenever you're feeding your frog. It all depends on their size. We were going to show you guys how to feed them and kind of how they act whenever they eat and stuff like that. But little man's already eaten tonight, so we're not going to worry about that. I'll show you guys in a future video. I'll do a live video of the feeding and stuff like that for my reptiles. And I'll show you how he does with his feeding one of these days. And I'll attach the Pac-Man feeding into the Pac-Man series of videos so you guys can see how he does with eating. Now, whenever I showed you guys in daily care requirements how to take care of Pac-Man, as you can tell, they're very easy to care for. It's really just, hey, put their food in there, let them do what they do. It's nothing to where you have to, like, take them out and put them in a separate enclosure to feed them, nothing like that. They'll eat whenever they're ready to. So it's really easy. You just put the food in and let them do their thing. So that basically takes care of the feeding part. Now, I'm going to mention this because of the fact that I know the other half didn't put it on here, but for handling, handle as little as possible. The oils and stuff on your hands from your skin can damage the skin of your frog and can harm them. So handle as little as possible. If it's just to encourage them, say if you got a new one, he's still getting used to being in your home and stuff like that in a new environment, reach down to the substrate, kind of tap him a little bit, like on their butt or on the side, and have him move up out of the substrate so you can get a good view of him and kind of encourage him to come out to eat. Now, if you're changing substrate, the one thing I want to recommend, some people may not, some people may do it this way, is take him out of his enclosure that you're cleaning, put him into like a plastic container or something that he can be in that's deep enough that they can't jump out of. I would say like a butter dish.
Or extra pet carrier if you have.
Yeah, or an extra pet carrier. Just something that he can't get out of. Put him in there. You don't have to close the lid on a butter container. I wouldn't recommend it unless you already have holes in it for ventilation. If it's an extra pet carrier that's designed for reptiles or something like that, great. It's already got the ventilation for them. But whenever you do it, just real quick, move you from your substrate, put you in the temporary housing, and then right back to the enclosure, and that's all the handling you want to do. Don't do like you would with your snakes or your lizards, where you're doing daily handling, because that's going to damage their skin and it can harm them. So, like I said, handling at minimal. Overhandling will hurt your frog. It's not like a snake and stuff like that where you can tame them down. Frogs are not meant to be handled, especially not the Pac-Man frogs. So, whenever you're doing the substrate, quick out of the substrate, change the substrate out, put it back in. That's the only handling you need to do. After handling them, make sure you wash your hands and stuff like that. And actually, before handling, I'd recommend before handling to wash your hands first to get any excess oil or dirt off your hands so it doesn't harm your frog.
Or if you have extra gloves.
Yeah, if you have vinyl gloves or nylon gloves or like medical grade gloves, use those. One, it's going to protect the frog from getting the oils from your hands. I can't stress it enough. Those guys are so sensitive. There's a lot that can hurt them. So if you have gloves, even if you have a pair of gloves and you're like, oh, I don't want to use it just once, and you're wanting to take the frog out, then go ahead and wear those gloves. And then after you're done with them, make sure that you somehow clean them very well and store them. And before you go to handle your frog next time, make sure you wash them and stuff like that. Just kind of rinse them off and make sure that whatever's on them is off. And then you handle your frog whenever you clean out the substrate again. Substrate cleaning, really, it's probably once every 6 months, I think. It all depends on, like I said, looking at the substrate in the last video and actually looking for mold.
Yeah, depends on how fast it grows the mold.
Yeah, it all depends on how fast it grows the mold. But if you think about it, if you have moisture in your house, like in your walls or something like that, and you're starting to see mold, that mold is toxic to us. It's the same as with your frog. If you find mold in the enclosure, get your frog out of it, change the substrate immediately, wipe down the enclosure, put new substrate in, put your frog back in. Because that mold is going to be toxic to your frog. So please keep that in mind, guys. The care of these guys is very simple. It's very easy to do. But they can't do it on their own. They can't tell us whenever something's not right. So take care of them.
Yeah, I think it literally takes me maybe 2 minutes tops to do the full care on him every day.
Yeah, it's literally about 2 or 3 minutes. 5 at the most whenever we're really doing a deep check on substrate. Sometimes we just kind of turn the cage and make sure that with his enclosure, we look around the substrate to make sure that the outer parts of it doesn't have any mold. Every other day I'll kind of move substrate around and make sure there's no mold growing in the middle. So sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's as less as 2. So it's pretty quick and simple. The only other thing that I have not mentioned is with an enclosure, a Pac-Man frog can live in a 10-gallon enclosure comfortably. I recommend a 20. Due to the fact that the more room you give them, the more comfortable they are, the more active they'll be, and stuff like that. They'll move around a lot more. Just make sure you have that 3 to 4 inches of substrate so that they're comfortable and they can hide. They like to burrow, so keep that in mind, guys. But like I said, a 20-gallon for an adult Pac-Man frog is great. That is plenty enough room for them to move around and do whatever they want to. Yes, it's going to get you a lot of substrate for that, but you know what? I guarantee you, whenever you find out how happy your frog is and you see how much more active they are at night and wanting to explore and do stuff, you're going to understand that the bigger and more substrate, or the bigger enclosure and the more substrate you put, the happier they are. So keep that in mind. I always recommend going big or go home. But like I said, it's scientifically a 10-gallon is perfect for him, but I recommend a 20 because it's going to give him double that amount of space to move around and have enough time to do whatever. And if you're breeding your Pac-Man frogs, definitely a 20-gallon. Because if the female doesn't want anything to do with the male, and you're monitoring them and the female's on the other side of the enclosure, the male will be on his side. That gives them enough space between each other. Now, if you see the issues like I was mentioning before about breeding,
you can also get a divider and put it in the tank to make a double tank out of it.
You can get like a little divider. It's like a little bitty piece of plexiglass plastic, or another piece of glass that goes right in the center of the enclosure, and that will divide them apart from each other. And that will give them both about 10 gallons to kind of rest, especially during breeding time. So keep that in mind.
Or if you have two and don't really want two different enclosures, you can make two enclosures out of the one.
Yeah, like I said, with the 10-gallon, if you get a 20-gallon, you have two frogs, you want them both in that 20-gallon, get a divider, put it in the middle. You have 10 gallons for each one. Perfect size. They'll both be happy. But like I say, go big or go home. So get a 20-gallon.
Rex, leave her alone.
For one frog alone, and your frog will be the happiest frog you'll have, because it'll have more room and stuff like that to move. So that's enough about that, guys. We talked about the feeding. Told you about the handling. Like I said, as little handling as possible, just to where you don't harm your frog. Talked about enclosure size, which I forgot to do in the last video. So keep those things in mind, guys. Like I said, your frog can't just look at you and say, hey, I'm not feeling good, or hey, there's mold growing in my enclosure. You need to look for stuff like that. You need to look for signs of that. If you have any questions about signs to look for, as we go and as we learn as new Pac-Man frog owners, we're doing research as much as possible. So I'll keep on looking. And if you have questions about signs of how to tell if they're sick or something like that, I'll answer those questions for you. I'll look it up and stuff and make sure I have the proper answers for you. But thanks you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell notification, which should be right below my big head, over to the right side of the screen. But go ahead and hit that bell notification, hit all, so whenever I post new videos, you get alerts that I've posted, and that'll show you that I have new videos up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below in the comment section. Even if it's just a thank you for the info, it was real helpful, anything like that. It means a lot to me. Me having OCD, it shows me that I'm doing something, I'm helping someone to learn a little bit more about their reptile. Or in this case, amphibian. But it means a lot to me, guys, for y'all's comments. It gives me a peace of mind to know that I'm doing
Rex
good and
Michael,
helping somebody.
Back off of her.
So, yeah, Rex is over there aggravating the new dog. But if you can't get me on the comments down below, if I don't respond to them and you have a question, get me at Facebook at AIR Reptile Rescue. Send me a message there and I'll answer everything. I think I have a response time of under 11 minutes, so I'm pretty quick about answering all questions. I talked to one guy for about 3 hours one night, just answering questions for him. I'm happy to do so, guys, so feel free to message me and let me know if you have anything you want to know about. Good night from AIR, from all of our babies here. We were going to show you the hamster tonight, guys, but he's sleeping underneath his wheel, so it's going to be hard to see him.
They are nocturnal, and we have the lights on. So
yeah, we have the lights on, and they're nocturnal animals, so he thinks it's daytime. He's sleeping. Zeus is falling asleep on my feet. Rex is trying to aggravate his sister.
Oh, she's laying on me since he got in trouble.
She's falling asleep over there. The cat's asleep. The snakes are asleep. So, we're going to say goodnight from AIR and from Louisiana, guys. Y'all stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see y'all in the next series.